Hi there, confidants. Thank you for your support, and thank you for being here. I'm going to look into energy and symbol, and this, of course, kind of relates to channeling because what we're fundamentally doing, and this is what we're always doing when we say we're always channeling, is that the kind of reality construct that these entities present us with is this idea of a type of funnel, a prism, the Merkaba, right? This structure that's funneling energy into a construct of reality and is thereby creating the impression of a lived life, a reality of matter and material. Um, and that's a way of course describing it, right? That we have universal substance or energy, and of course energy is even scientifically speaking in the natural sciences is still like it's a weird thing. Like what is it, right? Like we can describe it as like what is light, we can describe it as the radiation, and then it's like are they waves or are they particles? Well, it kind of depends on how you look at it, but it seems to just be this thing that's present, and sometimes we discover these universal forces that are related to, let's say, energy tensions or relationships in the minute. So those are like gravity or electromagnetism or sub what's that subatomic nuclear force, right? So those ideas that there is this like weird stratum of tension in reality that was created in the Big Bang, like whatever idea we have of how the cosmos rose, right? It's kind of like just all of the sudden, like there was like the surplus of energy that started arranging itself in configurations, and that's a process that's still going on, and that we are observing from the inside and making ideas of. And none of this is. Um, these are things that we essentially don't remind ourselves of very often, but this is the way that we actually look at reality, and the thing that we're taught in school, right? The idea that we're living within this type of process that's developing and organizing itself, and we're looking at it and trying to figure out what is happening as we go about it. But then that, of course, we could say holds an innate tension to the very immediate reality that is human life, and that is that we don't experience ourselves primarily as, let's say, physical elements or innate objects. We actually experience ourselves very much through um, symbolic conceptions of who we are. Philosophically, a symbol is something that attains meaning only by convention. Um, so that means, of course, that all words, for instance, are symbols, right? Uh, because once I point to a word, it's only because all of us agree that word means the thing that word means that we can actually use that to denote something. There's no inherent concept in reality that says that symbols need to have the significance, the meaning they have. So that is the basic conundrum, tension that man sort of finds itself in the modern era, approximately from the 1600s forward. This is kind of the problem that we're in. That well, we're getting more and more insight into sort of the world as a mechanical process, as a process that's disengaged, that has nothing to do with us, but that we, with these disinterested modes of abstract observation that we develop in the sciences, we begin to be able to say and predict and observe a lot of very, very meaningful things about the material world by doing that. And at the same time, the symbolic realm of man becomes disjointed almost. And these are some of the earliest concepts you'll find in Shakespeare, for instance, right? When Hamlet says, "Time is out of joint, O cursed spite that I was born to set it right." It is this idea that Hamlet is one of the first figures, along with someone like Don Quixote, for instance, who are very, very disconnected from reality, who are living like in this private, weird, symbolic realm where you can kind of be more engaged in, something about my uncle, and he has something with my mother that definitely don't approve of, and my dad, who may or may not be real, but taunting me and telling me to do stuff, right? It's that private reality that informs Hamlet more than it's any kind of, let's say, objective, significant, continual reality he's embedded in, which is the case for all of human history. So it's in this modern era we begin to ask these questions, and of course, in the case of Don Quixote, it becomes incredibly comical, right? Also like the implication that life has also become slightly boring, slightly like predictive. And so, with this access to this symbolic, disengaged realm that he finds in his books, this hidalgo, this man of low nobility in Spain, right? He becomes engaged in like this weird idea that he can create his own fairy tale, and he can go out there and make that. And make that real. And that's incredibly fascinating, of course. Like the conundrum that then we just become these weird dreaming figures who are somehow dislodged from the real, true, cold, impersonal universe out there. So it in many ways also reduces our personal lives to a great degree of insignificance, right? Which is often probably kind of the dark and of sentimental objection people naturally have against a very natural, very scientific worldview, that it kind of seems to not be able to want to explain or understand or fully recognize the significance of symbolic, mental, personal experience, and that weird adventure, that hero's journey that seems to be all our lives. Um, and that's it's fascinating how we then try to begin to unite this in modern era. We can even call it the postmodern era. I know it's getting very philosophical, and I'll also try to steal myself, because of course there's a whole lot of framework and historical context to this that's hard for me to provide in this talk. But to understand then in the 20th century what we could say happens in physics, very interestingly, in quantum physics and the Copenhagen interpretation, is this idea that again, reality as it develops becomes what's known as collapsing the wave function, becomes dependent on the interaction of the actual potential states that the quantum holds before it collapses into a reality in its meeting with determination. So that's the very weird, I think, weird thing, that it seems to imply that what is actually going on is that we find ourselves in this weird soup of potential, possibility, and that once we begin to make statements about that, it seems to align with that. So this soup collapses from its potential into that definite set of reality. And that's the weird idea, like that our free will then is actually determining what is it that I'm feeling here. And notice then, like the excitement principle with Bashar and stuff, that this is the idea, is this excitement? Is that fear? Is it excitement? Is it potential energy? What is it? So that's the idea, that you have this raw soup of energy that, when it is engaged by symbolic reality, when it is engaged by our observance of it, our determination of what it is, it collapses into what it is. It actually becomes reality by our determining what it is. And this is this great reinvention of magic that we're sort of weirdly undertaking. The reality is actually that big that it seems to yield to our dictums, our statements about it, the spells we cast become reality. And if you've, I assume that you're also finding that to be real in your life, like the stuff that I see come into being, where I'm just like incredibly like, what is this? And it seems to have the greatest sense of humor, which I don't know, is maybe also my way of engaging with it. But I always feel like it has this element where reality wants to tell me, like, I told you so, with a very, very like smirky expression on its face. I don't know if your life aligns that way, but I think that really speaks to the fact that it seems like our lives aren't just random arrangements of matter that we make sense of, but that there is this kind of um, meaning, purpose embedded in things, that's kind of coming out of it with our interaction with it. And I think that's a very beautiful perspective of sort of reinventing and reimagining ourselves. Though I must also admit, in my personal life, it's with some horror I realized this, because I often feel like it's songs I've been listening to for years. So it's like, it's stuff that I know I need to deal with, but that I don't really want to deal with, or something. It's that stuff that becomes real, and then yeah, then you're interacting with it, right? Which is kind of the again, like, I like to return to the Sorcerer's Apprentice image, this idea that then they're running amok your creations, right? It's Mickey trying to split that broomstick. He can't get to stop carrying buckets of water apart, and it just keeps proliferating because you don't know what you're doing. It's the image of the Hydra, right? So every time you interact with, try to cut off a head, chaos sprouts new heads to try to swallow you whole. And it would seem to me intuitively that what would be sensible here is then to be very, 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 very disciplined about the symbols you have, the dreams you engage with, the stuff that you envision, um, but also to recognize that there is some part of reality that needs to be acknowledged. So when this symbolic creation, what we call manifestation, becomes dislodged from the matter, the more, like, let's call it like the slow collective substratum of the reality we share, it seems that these creations also run a little amok, that they carry us off in places that are not sustainable, and that will return us to that more like collective space again, with the hero's journey, right? With lessons learned, but that it needs to be created there, um, in some sort of um, dance negotiation, uh, bond between reality and vision. And it's this I would love to get Guan Yin to guide us, in this video. um, and then I feel like there was one final thing I wanted to add to this subject. And I think it's this idea again um, of, when you're creating your dreams, but your dreams are not essentially yours. They are also created from some kind of need in the oversoul, some some kind of thing that the world also wants from you. And I've been a little amused with the whole positive quotes thing, because I think in the meditation app I use it, for instance, it sometimes gives me a quote from, it just says it's John Milton, and I think the quote is that the mind is its own place, and it can make a heaven out of hell and a hell out of heaven. And then I go like, well, I think that's actually Satan in Paradise Lost, right? And the whole point is, of course, that you can't do that. Like that's the point, that he's kind of mentated himself out of the order, the contract with God, and he's been thrown in the abyss, and there he sits with all, like, and he makes these stupid statements about, like, oh, it'll be all right, and like, oh, my demon buddies, and oh, we'll make it something of this. But of course, the thing is that you can't make a heaven out of hell, and it's not better to rule in hell than it is to serve in heaven. That's Milton's entire point. Um, and I think that that's quite beautiful. I came across it, I think, with Dostoevsky too, where you find quotes about, like, what it takes to be a great man from Crime and Punishment. And of course, if you know Crime and Punishment, the whole point is that you can't put yourself above people like that. You can't just go out and kill people because you have some idea about you being better, or somehow allowed, or somehow, like, appointed by fate to do great things, and therefore you're above common morality and decency. Like that's the idea, that there's always the adaptation between our collective situation, our reality, and our vision, our potential, our soul. And that's really what I'd love to unfold in this, and get Guan Yin to look into, because I think that's age old wisdom, but it's something that I keep trying to wrap my head around. So I hope you took something from that long talk, and thank you for being here and for your support, guys. With the deepest of love, I come to you. With compassion, I hold your heart as close to mine as I possibly can, filling your heart with a pulse of warm, overflowing life force. I extend my torch to light the candle within your chest, and allow this flame there to grow, to become alive, and to illuminate your inner space. Because this is the illumination that is necessary for you. So you don't necessarily need to create molds or go to your foundry to do some smelting. Our friend here says he's enjoying that word. That is that you don't need to overheat and overcharge anything to create the things you want. Rather know that the flame that's burning within your chest and I just asked you to simply be aware of. This is the flame of consciousness. And much as you would gently guide a candle through an open dark space, being careful not to extinguish it, observing the shapes that came forward, taking heed of where they are positioned in the darkness. In this manner, you should also carry forward your consciousness in this world of shifting shapes. And thereby you will make out what you need to avoid and what you may be looking for in the darkness that suddenly becomes apparent. So notice that your consciousness is so powerful that what it creates on the outside, these are simply shadow manifestations of their inner reality. So much as that illuminated one that also walks among us in these heavenly halls of sacred knowledge, he used that image of the cave as the place you are stuck. Because notice that the creations that you are so eager to create, they are only these cut-out figures. They are these outlined projections that come from your inside. You are the projector, and you are the one who creates the slideshow of figures as well. And it is essentially by moving the outside inside, by realizing that the material world itself is being created within you. Our friend here began with describing that image of the Merkaba, that idea that you were in reality, that is in higher, timeless, eternal, unchanging reality, as it is seen beyond the veil, from beyond the veil. There you are, this more prismatic substance that's funneling energy into an experience. But you're not just a singular prism. You're not a personal adjoincture to some grander structure. You are the whole unto itself, separated and kept holy within this protective casing of a personal experience. So what do I mean when I'm pointing to this deep mystery? That you are the totality of the whole thing. That the Big Bang never really took place. That what is happening now is a billion, trillion, big bangs and creations all taking place at once, that once it becomes pertinent within the chamber of your experience to reorder and realign structures of reality itself, for you to become planetary, stellar, universal in your consciousness. You will become so, and their reality will have shifted from your perspective, now seemingly to something unrecognizable, but from the universal perspective of truth, of you, to something that it always was. So you are the creation taking place right now. All creation taking place right now. And you are determining the outcome of these states in this chamber of random calculation. And so what you find is that the feeling that's mirrored in human beings as understanding this is a type of reduction of randomness within reality itself. And the higher beings or consciousness ascends, the more it focuses itself in broader structures of connectivity, the more it understands. And so the more it is predictable, unfolding, mechanic, we could say, in its nature. By the very nature of you expanding, reality is becoming wider. That is, more things can be held within consciousness, lived life. But it is also becoming simpler, in that fewer things can potentially happen in the determining trajectory of reality that you are. You are the eternal collapse of the wave function in that way. You are eigenstate, always standing there, on your own and unified. So it is within this being, this great mystery, that you find yourself now seated here, pondering how to reconnect to this grander memory of who you are, this greater understanding. And the easiest way to do so is, as our friend here was pointing to, through the realm of symbols, through the realm of meaning, of significance. So notice that these things are also presented to you from the outside. So where is the content of your dreams produced exactly? Is it flowing in from the outside world for you to charge with energy? Or are you creating it for it to come to be in the energetic flow that is the outside world? Well, do you see that this difference doesn't really exist? That it would be more correct to see it as a universal ocean of you, an understanding and a connectivity that bubbles up and presents itself as randomness, so that this randomness can be collapsed and become determined, and cycled back into that everflow. You yourself are a wave, you're a pattern arising on a great unified body of matter. You are that crest, that place where all of reality is at this moment crashing onto the shores of consciousness. Do you see the spear point of your mind? Do you see the point where everything is concentrated in you, in this moment, and in the symbols that are present here, in the meanings unfolding around you? These are not random codes. These are not even clues. These are miracles. These are songs, symphonies, artworks surrounding you. Everything is given shape by you staying with it, being with it, feeling it, seeing it, embodying it. Live and know that life is living you. You are being lived. And in that way, everything is in place, in play. So with that, dear human beings, Hai Guan Yin, I bid you with compassion, greatest participation in your experiences. I remind you that you can call me and I will join you with guidance, with love and with care. And this day I will bless you and bid you farewell, wishing you prosperity and peace. So I hope that served you guys. I sense there was a lot of different trajectories, both in the talk and maybe also in what she presented, but hopefully there was also something inspirational and useful in there. So much love to you.